Establishing rapport, understanding pastoral appraisal, evaluating contracts and covenants, discussing confidentiality, acknowledging the limits of pastoral counseling, and the appropriate use of confrontation are critical skills to develop in pastoral counseling. Rapport has been defined as a condition of mutual understanding and concern about common objectives. Counselors may speak of having good rapport with individual clients when they feel that they have convinced these clients of their goodwill and have earned their confidence. Carol Rise has written that a person cannot communicate the deep, intimate aspects of his life to another unless he has a feeling of security, confidence, and trust in the other. This is what has often been called rapport. Pastoral counselors should bear in mind that crises usually precipitate the first interview, and that their clients are likely to experience some degree of anxiety when they first come face to face with their counselors. Few people really want counseling. It is a threatening experience wherein people admit their inability to cope with a life situation. It is a plea for help. Clients may be fearful of encountering social stigma if their friends discover that they are seeing the pastoral counselor. Openly recognizing and discussing situational anxiety by any legitimate means is appropriate and will often do much to alleviate the counselee's discomfort. According to Rollo May, rapport depends on each person in the counseling situation being at ease. The best way to put the client at ease is for the counselor to be comfortable and to show it. Counselors should sit comfortably, devoid of nervous mannerisms. In their attitude to the client, they must balance sensitivity and robustness. Above all, pastoral counselors should avoid a stiff professional manner. This is the chief barrier to establishing rapport. Pastoral counselors usually have to make some decisions based on the appraisal of persons who come for help. One such decision relates to referral. Can I help this person, or should I refer him or her to someone else? The answer to this question depends partly on whether a psychiatrist or some other professional counselor is nearby, partly on the client's apparent willingness or unwillingness to accept such a referral. The more basic question is, am I secure enough to discuss this kind of problem, and do I have the ability to help this person find a solution to it? The minister who counsels must distinguish anew with each client the kind of psychological disturbance presented and its degree of difficulty. If at all possible, each pastoral counselor should have obtained answers to at least the following questions by the end of the first interview. First, what is the person's stated problem? When did the person first become aware of it? Where else has he or she sought help? Why did the client finally come to see the minister? How long has it been since the person had a medical examination? And last, who can best help this person? Shall I try to help now, or in a series of sessions, or should I refer? One task of the pastoral counselor is to educate clients about the counseling process and method. Counseling literature refers to this explanation process as structuring or developing a contract. Branoir and Shostrom define structuring as the counselor's definition of the nature, limits, and goals of the general counseling process and the particular relationship at hand. Structuring provides clients with the orientation, framework, and rational plan for counseling. A certain amount of structure is necessary for responsible pastoral counseling. However, the clergy, traditionally familiar with covenantal relationships such as the Mizpah covenant in Genesis 31, also recognize the divine presence in human contracts. Covenant making seems to be a more suitable phrase than structuring in pastoral counseling, since the recognition of the presence of God is one of the unique features of this ministry, which is not connotated in the term structuring. Contracts and covenants are different in several ways. Contracts are external and lead toward legalism. Covenants are internal and lead toward grace in the giving of services. Contracts are made to be discharged expediently. Covenants promote growth and nourish rather than limit relationships. Also, the notion of covenant permits ministers to set professional responsibility for one person within social limits. By contrast, the friendship model can imply an exclusive relationship that obscures a person's larger obligation to congregations. Certain limits on counseling situations are inescapable. Perhaps the time limit is paramount. As with other counselors, pastoral counselors limit the amount of time given for each interview. Therefore, they must explain to their clients at the onset of the interviewing process just how much time is available. Often when time limits are present, clients hasten to accomplish as much as possible in the time allotted. Action limits are also required. Pastoral counselors should not limit verbal expression, no matter how absurd, unfair, or foolish it might sound. They cannot permit, however, the active expression of certain extremely positive or negative feelings. For example, clients are not allowed to destroy furniture or equipment. They can say that they do not like the counselor, but they are not allowed to physically attack him or her. Hurting the counselor would arouse deep guilt and anxiety, because the counselor is one of the few people who seems able to help the client. Limitations of responsibility are necessary as well. Wise pastoral counselors formulate clearly the extent to which they will assume responsibility for the problems and actions of their clients. Pastoral counselors make it clear that clients are helped more if each is personally responsible. Another limitation for relationship-focused pastoral counselors is to protect clients from the emotional overexposure that can result from confessing too much too soon. Clients should feel free to lead the way to the most important and relevant data concerning personal difficulties. It is unwise, however, to reveal hideous sins before the counseling relationship is established. Such confessions seem either to reduce the client's motivation to return or to make the client feel too much has been revealed, thus he or she feels too guilty to face the pastoral counselor again. Conversely, the minister needs to balance the concern for overexposure with a commitment to avoid imposing an extremely narrow structure or directive influence on the counseling situation. Imposing limits is a part of the continuing process of covenant making, and providing further guidelines at the right time is crucial. This process, as with the entire experience of counseling, is presented to clients as much by demonstration as by explanation. By giving clients the opportunity to participate in a therapeutic experience. Pastoral counselors will need to expand the covenant from time to time, in such ways as informing the client of the counselor's need to take and keep notes or recordings, accepting the amount of time needed for the therapeutic process as well as unexpected delays, understanding the confidential nature of all discussions, setting guidelines for demonstrativeness or physical contacts and gift giving, and correcting behaviors such as consistent lateness, broken appointments, and frequent cancellation of appointments. In pastoral counseling, ministers must keep in mind two things and apply them to every technique employed. One, how will this affect the relationship? And two, will it contribute to the therapeutic objective? These considerations often entail using techniques that emphasize the similarities between the counselor and client and de-emphasize the differences. The tone and the inflection of the pastoral counselor's voice tells clients something about the pastoral counselor's genuineness. The pastoral counselor's posture and physical distance from the client reflect reverence. Usually, if pastoral counselors lead toward and sit comfortably close to the client, the latter infer that this is a friendly attitude. An attentive posture of towardness as opposed to away fromness is important. Confrontation can have a valid place in the pastoral counseling relationship. It is one of the counselor's ways of expressing to the client that there are discrepancies in his or her behavior. Robert Kharkov identified 3 types of discrepancies that call for confrontation. First, discrepancies between clients' expressions of who they are and who they want to be. Second, confrontation about discrepancies between clients' expressions about themselves and their behavior either as the counselor observes it or the counselees report it. And third, discrepancies between clients' expressed experiences of themselves and the pastoral counselor's experiences of the client. Confrontation, then, is the pastoral counselor's attempt to bring to the client's awareness the presence of cognitive dissonance or incongruence in his or her feelings, attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. In the early sessions of counseling, pastoral counselors are tentative in their confrontations. In later sessions, more direct confrontations may focus specifically on discrepancies. The goal of confrontation is to enable clients to learn to confront themselves and, when desirable, others. Confrontation of self and others is prerequisite to the healthy individual's encounter with life. Confrontation is not limited to the negative aspects of the counselees. It also includes pointing out their resources and assets that are unrecognized or unused. Ralph Underwood has suggested the following guidelines for relational confrontation. Pastoral counselors should first disclose how they feel about the relationship before asking, "How do you feel about our relationship?" Second, Pastoral counselors should be tentative about their perceptions of a relationship. Third, pastoral counselors should frame their perceptions in the context of their hopes for the relationship. Fourth, when addressing a problem in a relationship, pastoral counselors should acknowledge their own contributions to the situation. And finally, pastoral counselors can invite the other person to share feelings and perceptions about what is happening in the counseling relationship. There are risks in confrontation. It is only useful and effective in relationships that exhibit high levels of trust, empathy, and reverence. And as with genuineness, confrontation can be misused by counselors to vent their aggressiveness, internal anger, or frustration. Establishing rapport, understanding pastoral appraisal, evaluating contracts and covenants, discussing confidentiality, acknowledging the limits of pastoral counseling, and the appropriate use of confrontation are critical skills to develop in pastoral counseling. These are the building blocks in which we will build upon the other fundamental skills of pastoral counseling.